All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to Fold in the Fundraising. Today we'll be chatting about sponsorship strategies and year-round partnerships to fundraise. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for being here. Let's take a moment to meet today's speakers. My name is Madison Keltman. I'm already off to a great start. And I will be co-hosting today's session with my colleague, Richard Council. Joining us today as speakers, we have John Biederman, the Vice President of Fundraising Strategy for Community Brands, and Didi De La Cruz, the Senior Manager of Demand Generation for GiveSmart. John and Didi, thank you both for taking the time to be here with us.
Great, happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so some housekeeping tips as we get going. Please feel free to use the Q&A box for any questions you might have as we go, and check your chat box for resources and links we'll share throughout the webinar. Our colleague Megan is helping us out on the back end, so keep the questions coming. Also, today's call is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with everyone attending, as well as any resources we share like in the chat. So without further ado, Richard, I will pass it to you.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So let's take a moment to review today's agenda so you know what to expect for this hour. We'll start with a brief poll diving into corporate social responsibility and sponsorship strategies, creative sponsorship ideas and mistakes to avoid, and GiveSmart features to elevate your sponsorship opportunities. We'll pause for a mid-webinar poll before touching on stewarding sponsor relationships and year-round partnership ideas and benefits, and then we'll end with the call with Q&A session. And then, as we mentioned, keep the questions coming. We'll answer some live and save some for the end. And we definitely want your input. So do not be afraid of the chat box. If you have any ideas to share or lessons learned, send us those messages in the chat so we can incorporate your ideas and feedback during the call. So getting it started, let's get the first poll going. And we want to know more about your organization's, excuse me, dry mouth for a second. Madison, I think you're a slip up kind of like went over to me a little bit. So we want to know more about your organization's plans for securing sponsors. Do you start communicating 1 to 2 months, 3 to 5 months, 6 to 9 months, or more than a year before your event or fundraising campaign? Let us know. While your poll is going, I wanted to briefly discuss an upcoming webinar opportunity. So November 17th, we'll be meeting for a 30-minute webinar to discuss GiveSmart features in demo form. So while also comparing GiveSmart's suite of features to a delectable dessert treat, the Choco Taco, and I hope everybody here knows the deliciousness of the Choco Taco. It's going to be a super fun session, and we're like super duper excited to share it with you and how GiveSmart can elevate your Giving Tuesday and year-round fundraising initiatives, as well as your 2023 events and fundraisers. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and close the poll and show some results. Yeah, so Madison, what you got any brief takeaways or anything that you want to share about these sweet numbers?
Yeah, super interesting. So we've been trying to dive a little bit more into what your sponsorship strategy looks like, and we'll be sharing plenty of ideas and strategies today, but very interesting how most fall in that 6 to 9 month ahead pool, which is kind of what I think common practice is. Some say 1+ year before, and some are falling into the 3 to 5 months or even 1 to 2 months ahead. So great to plan ahead or secure sponsors last minute, but really insightful data. So thank you everyone for participating in the poll.
Sure. Yeah, John, what about you? Any thoughts on those numbers to secure sponsors and how early some people actually start to do their planning ahead?
Yeah, it sounds very reasonable. It's it is a bell-shaped curve, and it doesn't surprise me that there's some people doing 1 month ahead or 1 or 2 months ahead, because they're probably going back to the same sponsors they had the previous year, so you don't need as much lead time. And then people who are doing 1 or more a year, I easily see that as well. It really depends, obviously, typically on the size of whatever you're trying to get for sponsorships. And since most of them are run by special events or just annual things, annual ones take longer, larger events take longer, whereas a smaller event, you do need you can have a shorter runway, because typically the sponsor amounts are less as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are really great call outs. And so speaking of that, can you dive more into and get us started with a conversation about corporate social responsibility and how that relates to securing your sponsorships?
Absolutely. And actually, first of all, I'd just like to thank my colleagues, Didi, Madison, Megan, and Richard, for putting all this together, because I love fundraising. I can actually say that now. I enjoy getting out there because actually I'm going to wear it's my Philadelphia Philly hat. I'm going to wear my fundraising hat because I've both been on the back end trying to create programs, both computer programs and things like that. And also the front end. I have been in the community organizing events, raising millions of dollars, actually, $1 million for a playground, 1.3 million for baseball lights and parking lots. And, it's something else once you get into it. I look back and go, well, that wasn't that bad. But at the beginning, there's a lot of fear, trepidation. It was hard reaching out to large sponsors. So I've walked in the shoes and I just know how hard it can be and actually how intimidating it can be. But of course, if you're on this call, then you're probably already used to hearing a lot of no's. But when you do get those yeses from sponsorships or donors or whatever, it makes it all the worthwhile. So let's talk about corporate social responsibility, because this is something I've known for quite a while. I've been in the business for a long time. But what I didn't know is that just in the last 10, 11 years alone, it has just been crazy taking off within any type of company that is socially responsible. So 90% of the S&P 500 right now have a formal corporate social responsibility plan versus just 20% 10, 11 years ago. And why did they do that? Well, they have learned that they actually, they're more profitable because of it. It is interesting that businesses do start doing things because if it pays off, then it'll grow. It's something that's important. It's really important because consumers have become more conscious of issues such as climate change, income inequality, healthcare disparities, labor practices, gender insecurity. And it's often the case, this increased consumer awareness has led to businesses embracing CSR practices. CSR really plays a crucial role in a company's brand and perception, including the attractiveness to customers, employees, and investors, to retain talent. And as I mentioned before, overall business success. Now, there's one thing that's not on this slide. There's 4 common categories of CSR. They're philanthropic responsibility for the business, economic responsibility, ethical responsibility, and environmental responsibility. And what we found that typically nonprofits will likely target philanthropic responsibility and economic responsibility first for those businesses and companies that focus on that over things like ethical responsibility and environmental responsibility. Now, of course, if you are an environmental nonprofit organization, there's exceptions to these rules, but there's the 4 common categories. And since it's growing, it's something that if you'd been like me, and I've been around for a long time, I would have been like, wow, maybe that's one of the reasons why we were able to get sponsorships for our events. And it's for large dollar amounts too. And so as we discuss various sponsorship strategies in this webinar, think of how you can use CSR to your advantage, because you will then be speaking their language. As I said, most companies that you probably want to partner with have or are thinking about corporate social responsibility as a core component of their strategy to accomplish these goals.
For sure. And I wanted to add something to that, John, if you don't mind. But for the talent retention section, or even employee engagement, that is one of the huge ones for many organizations where, they use it as an employee engagement tool to just bring in their employees and have them participate in not only the sponsorship side, but bringing in that peer-to-peer component to the strategy and to engage their employees. That's something big that we did when I worked at a healthcare company. And we would sponsor NAMI year after year, and we would attach certain activities to that. So that has been a big one that I have been a part of and have seen within other corporations.
Right, that's a perfect example. I remember my first job at Procter & Gamble, for example. At the time they're like, well, go visit these nonprofits. I was like, I get to not work for half a day, but it has had a lasting effect on what I do as well. So I'm just grateful for that. And I'm happy to associate myself with Procter & Gamble. They're getting a free shout out now, 25 years later. So, that's it's an important trend to know that these are the companies they want to be associated with these good feelings, employee retention, things along those lines. So next slide, please. Yeah, perfect. Reading my mind. The securing sponsorships. So how do we actually go around doing this? Well, that's what I'm going to be discussing right here, is talking about strategy, who to target, why to target, who to talk to. And then Dee Dee's going to be going to an actual lots and tons of creative tactics that she's seen from her own experience. It's going to be awesome. So what we want to make sure that we do is that we're evaluating companies and corporations within not just your local community, but also even more, the county, the state, national levels. Large national companies, if they have a representation within your community, these are the types of things they want to be involved with. A lot of times it's part of their own strategic plan for the things we talked about, employee retention, but also even marketing to new customers and things along those lines. Does their mission have a crossover, with yours? Are they already sponsoring similar local events? Just like your top major donor prospects are typically those who give major gifts to other organizations. Because if they have that, they have the capacity to give. Same thing with companies. If you're seeing them with others, I think that there is a misnomer or a myth that, no one asks them for money anymore because they give money to everybody else. It's the same thing as no one goes to that restaurant anymore because it's always too crowded. I see the same thing in my own local community because sometimes otherwise good intentioned board members typically will say, they're overwhelmed, but you still need to make the ask. Thorough research when you do the pitch really shows your interest and knowledge in the company. And let's see your company, your nonprofit generally wants to partner with them. Obviously, a strong initial connection can help your nonprofit foster a long lasting professional relationship and sponsorship with a corporation. If known, I suggest you always start with whoever the owner or founder is. I did own my own company for a while, and I always respected those that went to me. But what likely will then happen is that they will then forward the request or along things to somebody else. But it's okay to still be in touch with them. Can also help you determine whether a corporate sponsor will be a good fit for your organization. Just because they have money doesn't necessarily mean that you should take it, right? You should choose a corporate donor partner whose own mission value aligns with your own. And as I mentioned, personal connection is kings. Typically, you start up with your supporters' contacts. Look at that database. Network and knowing the right people is huge. Your organization's board members, volunteers, major donors, they all have connections. They all do. Consider having them ask their contacts directly, because many times when I do ask my friends or their businesses and things like that, they're doing it while I will ask them because I know their values are aligned with what I'm asking for, but also they do know me, and the chances of success are very good. And look and see where your donors work, considering starting with some of those organizations. Make sure that you have levels and options. In the next couple of slides, we have an entire list of creative sponsorship ideas, which, by the way, you're going to be able to get an easy download of all these slides. So you don't have to write furiously away right now. But it allows your sponsors of all sizes to find an option that works for their own mission, budget, and goals. And really, there's two main motivations for companies to sponsor a fundraising event. It either makes them feel good about themselves, or they're expecting to get a return on investment for their business. But often it's a bit of both. If you can pinpoint their motivation, you can tailor proposals that will appeal to their beliefs and values. For that, looking at benefits, values, and incentives, really make sure to have relevant information, data that will show them why a partnership with you will be beneficial. For example, if their brand targets a certain demographic, I would share what percentage of the event participants will be there. I'm going to be talking about later on. It wouldn't surprise you that probably some of your nonprofit, your donors are older. They're older people within the community, typically major donors who attend these events. The older they are, typically the more money they have, but they're also does make them prime candidates for sponsorships, things like financial advisors, real estate companies, things along those lines, and other ones that are surprises that I've seen work. And you may need to provide clear examples of what you can offer to the company event. To do this, you need metrics. With a software like GiveSmart, or really any good special event software, but obviously I recommend GiveSmart, you can use in-depth data collection to inform your potential sponsors about the things they care about, including the demographics incentives, the conversion rates, traffic to the event websites that you have, and click-through rates. A lot of times your major sponsors will, they'll have their branding, logo, et cetera, on the emails, and they will want to know, just like you want to know, what is the conversion rate, on the emails that send their donors. They want to know what the conversion rate on those open rates as well. And it's important to outline specific incentives to compel a business to partner with you. Really, it's showing the business your pre-existing press kits, your press releases, and other promotional materials so that they know you are the real deal. And they can also get a sense of where their own business will get boosted, and demonstrate that you have an effective marketing program in place. It's not just what we like to call in the business spray and pray. You spray a message out, where you send out and spam a lot of people, hoping that you get in responses back. And when a company sponsors, they sometimes ask to have someone be a committee for the event. So maybe add that in as an incentive. Believe it or not, you might think to yourself, oh, well, no, I don't want, who could do that? It'd be a lot of time. But in reality, what I've seen with especially larger local companies, companies with 100, 200 employees, there are people there that actually really do want to get involved. And because of the sheer numbers, there's a good chance that they're very aligned already with your mission and what your nonprofit does. Lastly, the needs and or wants. Really ask how you can maximize the type of exposure the sponsor wants. If they want to engage potential customers to get more interested in one of their products, how can you do that? Maybe incorporating a product demonstration table, or some kind, or setting up a giveaway of the product in some fashion. Bronze, silver, and gold package tiers or something similar. They're a good way to get sponsors to point you in what they want, and offering customizations of those packages is very much an effective way to seal the deal. So next slide. So what is an effective sponsorship pitch? Well, it starts with the mission statement. All the well-run companies I know in the area, they all have effective vision, mission, strategy, and tactics. But really, it's about the vision and their mission. What are the things that they want to do with the company, and how it aligns with your own. Also, the values is very important as well. Include success stories or accomplishments for your beneficiaries or even past events. You want to be able to explain your target audience for the event, as well as demographics. We keep talking about demographics and making sure that if the demographics match, that's even more effective for whoever you're talking with in order to justify the investment in the sponsorship. Include details in a timely event, effort, fundraising campaign, as well as your goals. Explain how you can ensure the sponsorship will benefit them. They really do want to know, even though they might not ask it, but people want to know what is in it for me, and what is in it for them. Provide the names of sponsors past and present so that their name would join. FOMO means fear of missing out, really does work. If you have an automobile dealership, sometimes you're in a great situation where I call they're dueling dealerships. They will, one's Mercedes, the other one is Lexus, for example. You can utilize that to your advantage. Thank them for their time and consideration, but also make sure that there is a very, very clear call to action in what your pitch is. Whether it's click in an email, it's a next steps in a physical is on-site presentation, or a Zoom call, is a very clear call to action and follow-up plan. You don't ask them to say, oh, get back to me. No, you say, how does next Friday at 3 o'clock sound to follow up? Will that be enough time? Finally, you can also pitch a media kit, or that's a data with average donor numbers, audience demographics, social media follows, number of contacts in your email list, and more. It's not always necessary. They may already know who you are. And then we keep talking about if you have a contact the organization you're contacting, really name drop the recommendation or blessing from that individual in your pitch. So if there's a board member or somebody that's high up in the company and you're talking with somebody else in the company, it's okay to name drop. And then finally, you do want to make sure that you reach the main decision maker, and as much as possible, find that out and make sure that they're in the room. These people have what is traditionally called MAN, which stands for they have the money, they have the authority, and they have the need. If you're able to get that person in that has that, your odds of success dramatically increase. All right. So the one thing I would really like to point out is that really is to understand marketing funds versus donation funds. Because in my experience, when companies sponsor nonprofits, there's two different ways to do it. And that is, all companies have marketing budgets. They all do, sales and marketing funds. And what I've found in my experience is it is so much easier to get from that budget than it is to have a committee approve a donation request. Having said that, there are going to be times when there really is something important to the community for your nonprofit. It could be a playground, it could be a hospital, extension, things like that, where the need is great within the local community. It could be a capital expenditure, things like that. In exchange for a major donation, then their name gets on that building, things like that. But it is a longer runway to do. It's typically run by a committee, and they may only meet twice a year. And that's something that is to be taken account for. So what I always recommend is, try to work with the person who's in charge first. If not, if they're involved in marketing and can approve as part of a marketing budget, because there will be a return on investment, that's important. And at the same time, most businesses are going to do something, especially public facing ones. Like retailers and restaurants are a great example. They may not be able to do the $2,000 sponsorship or what have you, but in my experience, 80%, 90% of them, in fact, I've only had one restaurant that said no. They'll do a $25, $50 gift cards or higher. They're easy to ask for. And you know what? Owners really know. It's one of the secret things about gift cards in the gift card industry that only 80% of paid gift cards get redeemed. All right. And then it's even less for donated ones. And the reason for that is that since the ultimate end winner or user of a donated gift card, they may or may not even like or need what the business is providing. So it lowers the cost of the business to ultimately redeem that customer, yet they get the full value of the gift card. So I've got no problem reminding business owners about that. And they know it. So, the true cost is a lot less than the face value, which is great, next slide. Yeah, go ahead, Dee.
Yeah, I wanted to add for the marketing portion, if you are talking to the marketing person at a certain company, that's where the demographics come into play. Like, we are really interested in that data, like who is attending your event, how many people do you usually have attending this event, or if it's a fundraising campaign, like who are your fundraisers, who's going to be seeing, their logo on your page or whatever you decide to do. That prospectus or that set of data is super important for marketing.
Absolutely. And so next slide. And just to summarize, companies to target, they match your value ideals. Their customer demographic match your constituents or donors. They have existing community building programs and processes in place. And it wouldn't surprise anyone, I've already mentioned at least 5 or 6 times, you have some kind of inside connection. You have all 4 of these things, you're definitely will get a sponsorship. And then next slide, what are companies to target? Well, here's just an example. I'm sure some of you know about these, but automobile dealerships, real estate firms, financial advisors, insurance agents, lawyers and accounting firms. And then what I like to talk about is home remodeling and landscaping, plumbers, for example, things like that, electrical contractors, all the electrical contract. I own a home, I'm a donor, and I'm pretty confident most major donors own homes, and they have all the same problems all homeowners do. And that is, they need somebody to call. Sometimes they're commodity business like a plumber. There are really differences with plumbers, but I'm definitely gonna, in fact, I have always hired the plumbers or whatever that sponsored the nonprofits that I'm part of. And it makes a difference. And I've talked to these owners and they say, we love sponsoring. That's Warrington Youth Baseball is one of them. Friends of Kids Castle is another. I'm involved in the other one is what's another Doylestown Athletic Association. So these are the things that we can get in front of the constituents because these people have homes and homes need repairs. So something that's overlooked. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give it away to Dee Dee. Dee Dee's really going to talk about some of the awesome creative ways based on our own experience that really works, and how you can use GiftSmart to make that happen.
I think we still have one more slide for you, John, on this to avoid.
See, I'm looking at the time. So, but mistakes to avoid, being too late in the process, not prepared, like I am just right now. I thought I was ending on slide 12, it's slide 13. This spamming, what we call spray and pray, excluding certain levels, and also excluding the people who said no last year. That's something, don't necessarily give up on the people who said no last year. Not offering diverse options, undervaluing your options. This happens a lot. You want to have some other folks to take a look within your organization, making sure that the value you're providing is in line with what they're paying for. Sometimes they get too good of a deal. And then also, again, we talked about having inside connection, not including the key decision maker. One of the things that I talk about is having a quid quo pro, means getting something in return. That if I'm going to spend time to go over to your business and really talk about how the nonprofit and what we do can help your business, then I really do expect the decision making to be there. And if they say that's not possible, unless I've got a good inside connection, or they truly just, they're out of the country, whatever, I'll just say, I really appreciate it, but maybe this is not a good fit. You'd be surprised that by saying no to a business, it can turn that into a yes, because they're like, wait a second, what do you mean we're not a good fit? We love, the XYZ organization. And then they'll reveal the real reason why either they can't do it, or, the person truly is out of town, things like that. With that, I'll give it over to Dee.
Thank you. And John, not that your slides are not fun, but now we're truly getting into the really, really fun stuff in here. So on the screen, what you're seeing here are just some creative sponsorship ideas that we have. Our team brainstormed these ideas so that you guys can pitch to your potential sponsors, but we also took inspiration from some of our own experiences and some of our partners here at GiftSmart who run their own campaigns. So let's get into it. When considering year-round sponsors, think about asking for sponsors for your website homepage or your social media, your newsletter ads, a title sponsor at the organization level that takes top tier year-round, a multi-year sponsorship opportunity, or this is a one that I really like, is even sponsoring to cover your technology and software fees, such as paying for marketing, email, or fundraising software like GiftSmart, and exchange for marketing that you would do for them, right? And I've even seen businesses sponsoring cover costs for office buildings for a nonprofit. So that's another one to add on to there. When considering event sponsors, think about table costs, including linens and chairs, your programs, signs, and printables, your print and virtual ads, because we're still doing some virtual things here and there, a projected video or production cost, event or organization specific or theme swag, games or raffles, foods and drinks. And this is one that I've seen often whenever I go to events, is a signature cocktail is branded, with the sponsor name or the sponsor brand. Other things that you can think about are the usual sponsorship placements, including in the event email invite and confirmation, as well as the landing page to register for the event. And don't forget about the in-kind donations at sponsorship levels as well. Some vendors, like your auctioneer or a production crew, maybe they may not be able to provide money, but they can provide their time, their goods, or their services as a gift. And then lastly, you should consider your giving days, like Giving Tuesday, which is coming up. So let's talk a little bit about Giving Tuesday. And I don't know if a lot of people think about this, but when you're working on your fundraising strategy, it's not about corporate sponsorships versus individual donations. It should actually be about both. And actually, corporate sponsorships can increase your individual donations when their employees also give. So think about that too for Giving Tuesday. If you have a sponsor for Giving Tuesday, How can you involve their employees? What can you do with peer-to-peer fundraising? You can also find a potential matching sponsor, find a media sponsor to cover TV or radio ads or announcements. And get a sponsor for your communications for the day of via social media, text messages, QR codes, etc. We've even seen some of our GiveSmart partners use the company name as the keyword to text to give. For example, let's say GiveSmart was sponsoring a certain nonprofit. That nonprofit would use the name GiveSmart as a keyword for their text to give, and people would text GiveSmart to, let's say, 21345 to give, and so that's additional visibility there. Or you can also think about adding the sponsor's logo on the QR code or your fundraising thermometer. So these co-marketing efforts, they'll benefit both you and the organization that is sponsoring you. And when you co-market, you're giving visibility not only to your nonprofit, but the sponsors also getting that visibility, which makes the partnership mutually beneficial. And they'll share the things that you share with their logo or with their information. So that gives you additional reach as well. And lastly, for this slide, just remember that a good tip when you're setting your sponsorship levels is to really aim to raise about half of your total goal through sponsorships. So this slide here, these are more out of the box ideas. We got creative and thought about what other aspects of an event or fundraising campaign a sponsor could help you cover. And here's what we came up with. Wi-Fi. This is one that I see, very often, especially like in conferences and things like that. But you can do that for your event too, where they sponsor the Wi-Fi, and there's, some sort of pop-up that says who the sponsor is for the Wi-Fi. Or perhaps you have an event-specific app. Think about using your photo booth or selfie station with some of their branding. Snapchat filters, that's another one where you can create customized Snapchat filters with a brand name. And then other more fancy ones are like the eye sculptures. And then the gift card wall, I've seen that one, phone charging station, and so many more, right? So take these ideas and apply them to your own event and think of what fun opportunities you could offer your potential sponsors as funding opportunities.
Yeah,
and just really quick, just to add on to that, some of the most creative ones I've seen is just advertisement for the sponsorship outside the normal viewing area. So elevators, for example, even sidewalk, you can get sidewalk signs as people walk in and things like that. They actually really don't cost that much, but because they're in unusual areas where people do not expect to see them, they are very attracting to the eye, and sponsors love them.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one, John. And another one that I just thought about is like, when you're in line to get a cocktail at like an event or anything like that, that's perfect placement. Think about when you go to the store, when you're at Target or Walmart, right? You have all of those last minute things that that you might grab and on the checkout. Same thing with the cocktail. Is there placement there that you can add sponsorship signs or things like that?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And if I could just jump in too, a couple other things. I've seen eco-friendly materials get sponsored. So if you have like silverware or plating or, anything like that for your organization, you're trying to keep your event eco-friendly or going green, you can get sponsors that will cover those costs, because sometimes those materials can cost more. And another one that was super fun is like one of my team members said, think about your event almost like a wedding, where you add in little things here and there or special touches. How can you make those sponsor opportunities? Like I've seen restroom baskets where you have like little things for men and for women, or your gender neutral bathrooms to just cover what anyone might need during the event. That would be fun. Or, table favors, whatever you can get a sponsor to cover that also gets their logo out there can be super fun and creative. So that's another thing, is have fun with it. And the sponsors might have fun giving you ideas too. So.
Great. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention how GiveSmart can actually help with a lot of these sponsorships. So in GiveSmart Fundraise, you have the opportunity to build custom forms and landing pages, as well as specific set of keywords for text messaging. So you can add your sponsor as a keyword or whatever you want to make it. And then what you're seeing there on the screen on the left-hand side with the landing page is just, areas where you can add specific logos of your sponsors within your fundraising page that you're promoting. And then the other one that you see on there towards the bottom of the screen, that's part of GiveSmart events. And you actually have the option to create ads, build customized sections into your homepage, and create live event displays to honor your sponsors. You can include specific items, tickets, and form options for easier selling of sponsorships. And then finally, our GiveSmart Donor CRM, which is our donor management software. You can easily create, build, and send those automated thank you messages with templates that we've pre-created for you, or you can write your own. And you can do a donor search or create a report to see who has given in the past and reach out to them for potential sponsorship within their company. And the best thing of it all is that GiveSmart makes it really easy with guided implementation. We have how-to videos, we have help centers, and we also have 24/7 support.
Absolutely. I think those are all really great call outs. And as Dee Dee just mentioned, all of those great features that GiveSmart has to offer. I'll let Dee Dee and John take a quick break with another quick poll. So with everything you've seen and heard today, we would like to know if you would like to know more information about GiveSmart, whether that's details on plans and pricing or a personalized demo or tour of the platform for your team. We are here to help your organization grow. And as a reminder, in case you missed it, we are recording today's call. We will be sending it out in an email to all of you. And you will also get the slide deck and chat resources that we're sharing during the session. So stay tuned for that, because I know we're covering a lot of really great information and fun ideas. So thank you to everyone who participated in that poll, and we will keep going. Dee Dee, I'll pass it back to you.
For sure. I was about to say it's not over yet, guys.
No.
A few more slides. So sponsor acknowledgement. How can you acknowledge your sponsors throughout your event and after in creative ways? We'll start with your registration and check-in, right? Give them a presence on your registration page, including their names and logos, maybe even their link to their website. Add that information to the email confirmation you send to attendees and the directions for logging into the event. You can also give them preferred check-in or check-out, preferred parking at the event, or even actual free tickets to attend the event, right? You want to make sure that they're also attending your event. Make sure you're leveraging social media. As you promote your virtual event on social media, devote one day to each sponsor, thanking them for their support and highlighting unique aspects of their business, and making sure that you're sharing a link to their website so that they can get additional reach and audience that way. You'll also want to include them in event swag, including virtual packages. Your attendees will love getting a virtual grab bag of extras from your promotional partners. Sponsors can also offer free signups for their services, or coupons can be redeemed by visiting a physical location to bring more traffic to their area. And then there's a variety of things that you could do with food and drinks. So branding napkins with all your sponsors' logos, allowing sponsorship for each course, such as one sponsor logo on the sandwich wrapping and another on desserts, or maybe adding a branded water bottle for attendees' lunch kits. And then during any event, guests usually sit through plenty of downtime waiting for the speaker to begin or their breakout room to open. So take advantage of this by inviting sponsors to film short ads or commercials that you run during these times. And finally, make sure to thank your sponsors by name as you begin the event, and go beyond the usual of like, we couldn't be here without you, right? You want to mention them, include a description of what they do and why they are a valued partner. And trust me, your sponsors will love that individual attention. And then finally, show your gratitude. So make the effort when it comes to thanking your corporate sponsors. You want to thank them 5 to 7 times for each ask. You know, we talked about that in the previous slide, but those mentions go a long way. And then recognize your corporate sponsors at your events as well as on your, press releases, your media and other materials. Give shout outs on your social media, your website, and your printed assets, and make sure that the most important part is that make sure you're cultivating and managing that relationship to turn that partnership into a year-round contribution. The donor or the sponsor should feel appreciated and understand how important their contributions are to your cause and missions. If you do this correctly, then it should help you retain your donors, your sponsors, and increase how much they give. And be patient with the stewarding process because that can take many months. And remember that cultivation should only begin once a donor has been properly thanked. So make sure that you're thanking them, you're recognizing them, you're updating them. What was the impact? All of that is so important to keep that relationship going and get that sponsorship again the next year, or maybe they're giving in other ways year round. And then finally, as we wrap up, we also wanted to call out additional opportunities for partnerships with your sponsors year round. Consider community awareness efforts such as in-store total roundup, if applicable. I know I go to restaurants all the time and they're asking me, hey, do you want to round this up? You can ask for a month of donations from checkout, donation cards at the register that can be put up on display on the walls or in the windows. We've all seen the stores sell those cards in different sizes that you can write your name and tape them on the wall. And a new one that our colleague Richard just saw was gas pump fundraisers. So we saw, or Richard saw a local gas station that had a fundraising ad on there for about a month, and a portion of gas sales were being donated to a local nonprofit. So that's sort of a new one that I hadn't seen. We're all going, getting gas pretty often. So why not, try to partner with someone like that? And then really it's all about your partnerships with your sponsors, what they can do, who they know, and what strings they can pull, and how can you use those opportunities to your mission's advantage. Also consider company specific opportunities. Companies usually have goals for employee engagement and such. For example, in company fundraisers like wear jeans on a Friday and donate $5. We did those all the time when I worked for a really large corporation, and we loved that because we couldn't wear jeans the other days. Volunteer programs with their employees, or peer-to-peer voting campaigns. And what you're seeing on the screen right now, or that screenshot there, is an example of someone using GiftSmart to place sponsored ads within a voting campaign. So within GiftSmart, you can actually place ads for example, this one is a voting campaign, and they got their employees involved with voting and giving, in addition to the sponsorship that they already have. So that wraps up our webinar, and I'll hand it over to Madison to check to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we do have a few questions. So the first that I will start with is, what is a good way to go about finding out what a financial year is for a company you're reaching out to for sponsorship, whether it's calendar year, fiscal year? John, maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Sure. In my experience, most companies, as opposed to nonprofits, most companies are still tied to a calendar year type of program in their businesses. In specifically in regards to how they make decisions for the next year, I typically try to get ahead 3 to 4 months, whatever from when their budget process starts. And the budget process starts typically in the last quarter of whatever fiscal year that they're in. If it's a public company, that's easy to find. For private ones, unfortunately, I'm not aware of any kind of database. Like Dun& Bradstreet doesn't have that, for example, of what their actual fiscal year is. But the best thing is to find out from the insiders that you probably already have. And the other thing you do is you can just ask them.
Yeah.
You can literally call up an accounting department and say, I'm so-and-so, just tell them the truth and say, I was just wondering what fiscal year you're operating under. And I can make the claim. They'll probably be happy to share it with you because it's not like the super secret thing. You should, that is one way of many to get it. But I wish there was one database. I'm not aware of that being available, except for
Sure.
public companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And another great question, if any of us have experience, what percentage of sponsors actually want to fill a table or send their staff to events? If we have any experience with this. I see that chuckle.
I do, but Dee Dee, go ahead. Once you share your
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it depends on the event, and it goes back to, targeting those right sponsors. If you have the audience that sponsor is interested in, they're gonna want to attend their event because they're gonna want to interact with your audience. At least that has been my experience on like when we want to send someone and when we don't is, I'm not talking in particular to GiveSmart, but like in a past job when I did do corporate sponsorships, it was because, we were interested in engaging with that audience.
Right. But to answer the question, in my experience, you almost always get somebody to show up, but it's typically not exactly everybody. It depends upon how the event is structured, like a golf event. What I found is that you just have to remind whoever's the decision maker that, hey, they probably have employees that would like to do this. It is a lot of fun. I love golf events, by the way, special events. And so I really do enjoy them. They build community. But to answer the question, I'd say that there are, again, there certainly is a meaningful portion where they're not there. They only have 2 or 3 people on a 10-person table, or worse, they're not there at all. And if I know that they were not there at all, I make sure that I get their card off. And because nothing's more sad than a sponsorship table where nobody's there.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I'm going to take over for just a second. So do either of you, and actually we'll open this up to both of you, but we'll start with Dee Dee first. Do you have any specific advice for cold calling a potential new sponsor or reaching out to a contact at a company we've never interacted with?
Yeah, I think the first step that you want to take with that is making sure that you're targeting the right sponsors. Again, going back to what John was saying about, just the audience in general. So do your homework and understand what their needs are and how they work. What are they interested in? What benefits them? Is it your fundraising campaign or your event audience that, and is a specific audience that they want to reach? If so, make sure that you're mentioning that when you're talking to them.
Right.
And I think also another thing to think about is like the time of day that you're calling them. For example, if you're calling a restaurant during their busiest time of day, they're not going to be interested in talking to you because they're too busy. So think about that as well. And I would say, keep it professional, but personable, and ask questions and listen to what they have to say. And we all know cold calling is hard and it takes time and practice. So even before cold calling, think about looking at your donor CRM to see if there's anyone there that you can reach out to first.
Right. But if you are cold calling, there's one thing I've learned. I learned this at a nonprofit AFP session, Association of Fundraising Professionals, just a few years ago. And that is, what's the most popular word in the English language? Anybody know? It's your name. So what you want to make sure that you repeat is their name over multiple times in any kind of call or anything like that. And you'd be surprised the effect that it has on people because then they're friends, things like that. And also, if you ask someone for a favor, it's called the Benjamin Franklin effect, a small favor from someone you don't even know. If they follow through, then they're more inclined to say, well, of course I like this person because I did a favor for them. So just a couple of quick 2 tactics in cold calling that have proven to work in my experience. And it's not just, in fundraising, it's also in sales. This is a sales tactic as well, but it works in fundraising. So
That's a good
things to
one.
try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will agree with that. It's all about building the relationship on the front end. So being intentional with what it is, regardless of what it is, you kind of do that within your personal life as well, is just treat everything as you're building a relationship, and you will always go far. So to John's point, is like repeating the name is like letting them know that, yeah, that I'm treating you as you have a personality, because you do. And so treating other people like they actually are people is a good way to get into the door quick. So any advice for securing a matching sponsor for a campaign? And this is really open to either one of you.
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry. Can you repeat it? It just cut out a little bit.
Yeah. Any advice for securing a matching sponsor for a campaign?
I can take a crack at it. Dee. I mean, I guess from my perspective, the first thing about matching gift programs is that they work. The second thing is I've never seen one fail, ever. So because you do get the matching gift proceeds from someone who's already committed to the organization. So I think that it is a yet another incentive, like a sponsorship, because it gets their name out saying, so-and-so is going to match your gift 1 for 1, 2 for 1. You don't have to go in. You don't have to go completely off the deep end, like some of the text messages we've all been receiving in the last few days from our favorite political parties. 1 to 2 to, you don't even need to go as long as 3. X works, but that is a very low level fruit to add on as an incentive to a sponsorship program, that they would be highlighted as a matching gift. Because as I said, I've never seen $10,000, $250,000. They always get matched eventually.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. I don't really have anything else to add to that.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So last one from me. When thanking a sponsor, how much is too much or too little?
When thanking a sponsor,
Yeah.
I really don't think that you can do it too much. It's almost like the same thing that happens when there's anything big that happens in an organization or business, or even a crisis. No one ever goes back after a big announcement or a crisis and say, you know what? I really thought they over communicated. That really doesn't happen. What people complain about is that they're under communication. It's really quite rare for folks to do about over communication. Clearly, there are some exceptions. Some donors, a very, very small minority of donors, in my experience, will want to be anonymous. It does happen. Definitely respect those wishes. And that's also something that can be asked forefront, is that, do you wish to be anonymous? Again, my experience is with funders, they'll be thinking about it and they'll go, no, I'm all right with it. The people that want to be anonymous typically reach out to you first, because they want to make sure their anonymity is respected.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else I kind of wanted to throw into is that when it comes to thanking your sponsors, thanking your donors, stewarding those relationships, really focus also on those personal touches. So your social media thank yous and everything like that are also very, very important. But if you can send a handwritten note, or even just hand sign your letter with a little personal touch, or have a leader in your organization or your board member make a phone call as a thank you or something like that, those personal touches also go a really long way in making your thank yous more impactful in the end as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's great. I think that's the end of the questions. And if we missed any, obviously, we're going to do our best to make sure that we get back to you as soon as possible. But on that note, it's time to say farewell for today. Please use that end of webinar survey to share your feedback with us and request contact if you want to learn more. So thank you to everyone who has joined us, and thank you to John, Dee, Madison, and Megan for your time, effort, and for extending your expertise to all of us. We hope, and we will hopefully see you next time.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.